Let's talk about Black Shell. And look, I'm going to be real with you right up front. This is a bay a lot of people wrote off a long time ago. It's light, it's low, and on paper, it really shouldn't work. So instead of guessing, we put it through 300 full test battles to see what Black Shell actually does when the numbers are honest. And everything you're about to see is backed by the data linked down in the description below. So before we get into the performance, let's talk about why Black Shell is such a weird case. The blade itself is extremely light. Its entire design is built around a low profile, low recoil, and turtle shell coverage. That sounds defensive, but in practice, a light defense usually means easy knockouts. So the real question wasn't, is Black Shell good? The question was, what does Black Shell actually want to be? We ran 6 different Black Shell builds, 50 battles each against the same opponents so the results stay clean. And we tested 3 different philosophies: controlled balance, aggressive attack, and high variance chaos. We also paid attention to the ratchet weight because for Black Shell, every gram matters. For reference, the 160 ratchet weighs 6 grams. The 960 ratchet also weighs 6 grams. And the 760 ratchet weighs in at 7 grams. Let's talk about the shell itself for a second, because this is where Black Shell actually gets interesting. The blade has these downward angled contact points, and they matter way more than people think. If you launch it flat, they only engage in defense. However, when you tilt the launch, those points sit lower than most blades and can slide right underneath. That's what allows Black Shell to ratchet snipe instead of relying on raw power and defense. Let's look at our first build, Black Shell Operate. This was our control build. Black Shell, Operate bit, and the total weight was 46.4 grams. Operate kept Black Shell alive longer. It reduced self KOs and it made the rounds look cleaner. But here's the problem. Operate didn't generate enough high value wins. Most of its victories came from spin finishes, and against heavier bays, that just wasn't enough. It survived, but it didn't threaten. Its total win-loss ratio was 20-30. The total point average for this bay came in at 1.38. 64% of its total wins came from spin finishes, 22% of its total wins came from over finishes, and 12% came from burst finishes. However, it had 60% total losses for spin finishes, 23% losses for over finishes, and burst finishes it lost 13.3%. On to build number 2, Black Shell 760 Unite. This is where things got a little interesting. We have Black Shell, 760 ratchet, and the Unite bit. Its total weight came out to 41.5 grams. This ended up being the best overall performer. Not because it won the most matches, but because it earned the most points per battle. The total point average for this combo came out to 1.78. Unite gave Black Shell something it desperately needed: a way to win big. It has more extreme finishes, more over finishes, and more momentum swings. This build didn't just survive rounds, it stole them. It had a 46% of wins total for spin finishes. It had 26% total over finishes, and extreme finishes came out to 24% of its total wins. Build number 3, Black Shell 960 Low Flat. This is the highlight reel build. The total weight for this bay came out to 40.4 grams. When it worked hard. It had fast movements, explosive hits, and clean extreme finishes. But when it didn't convert early, it bled stamina and lost control fast. This is the kind of bay that is a KO or nothing setup. It's got a high ceiling, high risk, and you need a high launch skill in order to get this bay working for you. Overall, we had a win-loss ratio of 18-32 with this bay, and a total point average combo at a 1.72. 50% of its wins came from spin finishes, 22% of its wins came from over finishes, and 22% of its wins came from extreme finishes. However, it had 62% of its total losses come from spin finishes, 18% of its total losses come from over finishes, and 18% of its total losses came from extreme finishes. Our fourth build was Black Shell 960 Zap, and this one surprised us. The total weight for this build came in at 41 grams. Zap gave Black Shell options. If you launched it flat, it stabilized more than expected. If you had a tilted launch, it went hunting. This ended up being one of the best point earning builds overall because it could adapt mid-round instead of committing to chaos immediately. If your launches are consistent, this build rewards skill. The reason why we chose the Zap bit was because we needed to give this little turtle some extra oomph. With the 16 gear bit, it gives such a faster extreme dash than a standard 12 gear bit, but at the cost of more stamina being used during the extreme dash, which is why this one had more extreme finishes than the rest of our builds. The performance of Zap will vary depending on the angle that you launch it at. If you launch it tilted, the flat tip creates aggressive movements. If you launch it parallel to the stadium floor, the Zap combo will spin on a ball protrusion and then stay in the center of the stadium. We chose Zap over Point because it's a little bit more lower profile, which allows the turtle to essentially snipe the ratchet like it likes to do. The win-loss record for this combo was 18-32 with a combined point average of 1.76. It had 42% of its total wins for spin finishes, 30% of its wins came from over finishes, 10% of its wins came from bursts, and 18% of its wins came from extreme finishes. However, 53% of its total losses came from spin finishes, 20% came from over finishes, and 12% came from extreme finishes. On to build number 5, Black Shell 160 Zap. On paper, this should have worked out. It has the same ratchet weight as 960 with the same bit. But in practice, it was the most inconsistent build that we tested. When it won big, but it lost far more often than it should have. This combo was fun, but statistically, it's a trap. If you want more information about how this one did, just check the link in the description down below, and you'll get more information on how this bay actually performed. And for our final build, we went with Black Shell 160 Low Flat. This was the safer attack setup. The weight of this bay came in at 40.5 grams. It cut down on self KOs, but it also cut down on attack pressure. Against heavy stamina builds, it simply didn't close rounds out fast enough. Against Wizard Rod and Silver Wolf, we only won one of our games. 64% of our wins came from spin finishes, 18% of our wins came from over finishes, and 16% of our wins came from extreme finishes. However, 72% of our losses came from spin finishes, 15% of our losses came from over finishes, and 12% of our losses came from extreme finishes. So, after 300 battles, the pattern was clear. Black Shell does not win by playing fair. It wins by creating chaos, forcing extreme finishes, or stealing rounds before stamina becomes a problem. That's why the top performers were 760 Unite, 960 Zap, and 960 Low Flat. So if you're trying to make Black Shell defensive, you're fighting its nature. Alright, here are my final thoughts. Black Shell isn't flashy, it isn't heavy, and it's definitely not forgiving. But like any good turtle build, it wins by timing, patience, and knowing when to strike. If you rush it, you're going to lose. If you underestimate it, you're also going to lose. And if you don't respect what this blade actually wants to do, the data will punish you for it. We ran 300 battles, so you don't have to guess. All of the numbers, matchups, and breakdowns are linked down in the description if you want to go deeper. And now I want to hear from you. Do you double down on the shell? Or do you bring the offense straight to it? Drop your builds down in the comments. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button if you want more data-driven tests like this one. And ring that bell so you don't miss the next video that we drop. Because the next blade we test, let's just say, not everything survives the shell. Thanks for watching Burst Lab X, and we'll catch you on the next one.